Hey guys, I am in Columbus, Ohio. I'm about to meet Paul Schmitzer, the communications manager at Particl. We're about to meet up at this place. I believe it's called Easton Way. I am very excited. I'm a little bit nervous because I haven't actually met Paul in person yet. I'm going to sit down, ask him a few questions, maybe grill him a little bit because I know that a lot of Particl community members have been a bit frustrated with some delays with the marketplace release. I'm a little disappointed that it's not a super bright and sunny day because there are birds chirping and it's almost spring, but it's been drizzling and it's been raining for a bit. I just parked my car. Paul is running a little bit late. Luckily, I got here a bit before him, so I had time to do this intro. So I'll see you guys soon and introduce you guys to Paul and ask some questions and have some fun. Talk soon. Hi everybody, my name is Desiree. With me today I have Paul Schmitzer, the communications manager at Particl. If I'm wrong, I think he's going to correct me about the title. I'm meeting with him in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm going to ask him a bunch of questions. First, let's have him introduce himself to you guys.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Paul Schmitzer, and I head up communications, that's right, at Particl. And yeah, we're here in Columbus. Desiree came down, and we're going to try to answer some questions, and just thanks for having me.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to ask you is, could you speak to me a bit about your background, maybe not particularly inside the technical space, but how you got into this area, but first starting out with where you're coming from.
Okay. Yep. So my background, it's nothing to do with tech or like blockchain or anything like that. I started this more as a hobby, but I have a background in architecture. So I do healthcare architecture for about 20 years, and just always wanted to be an architect when I grew up. I love drawing stuff, designing things, taking apart stuff, putting it back together. So I always had that sort of, like desire to see how things work. So it always led me down to hobbies that sort of followed that. So yeah, I got into architecture and did that for a long time. And in around 2011, I was starting to get into just, looking around, reading. I was a big subscriber to Wired, I still am, and read an article in Wired about Bitcoin, and that's kind of got me hooked on blockchain and kind of following that rabbit hole all the way down. So
You said 2011?
11, yeah.
So you had no prior experience with, I don't know, maybe programming or coding or anything? Like you had no experience with software development or anything like that?
Not really. I guess I have sort of an entrepreneurial spirit, so I always would, I started a couple companies and did that. So I'm familiar with doing web design and setting up business plans, and with architecture I did design, but I also did marketing. So I have sort of a business related background, but I didn't go to school for it. That's not my field expertise. You just pick it up in the jobs that you're in. So I sort of gravitated to that. In 2001, I started my own company. My first company, it was called Module. And we did 3D visual graphics for companies. So in architecture, our tool of choice was 3D designing. So we would design everything in 3D and show it.
Is that like AutoCAD? Is that
sort of like AutoCAD, yeah. Or like gaming, how games are built. Yeah, that environment.
Yeah.
So we would do that, but in our hospitals or whatever building we were working on, stadium, and share that with the clients. So me and a buddy of mine, we decided we should do this all the time.
Okay.
So we started our own company in 2001, and we had to do all the background for it in the website and all that sort of stuff, but it wasn't really a tech company. It was a design company.
But you said that you started a bunch of companies, so that was just one? There were other ones that...
Yeah, maybe not a bunch, but a handful.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was Module, and I was part of that for a couple years, but then I also did wholesaling. So I was a vendor. I have a vendor's license, so I did similar to Joe, not on that level, but I am familiar with wholesaling and
you did this
distributing.
online, so it's all
Yeah.
so
So I had a company that was sort of related to that, about sourcing products and being able to distribute those.
Would you source from overseas, or would it just be American products?
All mine were typically inside the states.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering.
So I didn't go the length of having factories building products and like shipping them and shipping them out as a different product. This was just buying wholesale, drop shipping, and selling, on my own site. So I did that for a little bit.
And when and how did you get involved in? Did you see he's wearing a shirt?
Yeah, Particl.
I want one also.
Yeah. So I got into crypto space in 2011. Like I said, I read an article in Wired called "The Rise and Fall of Bitcoin," and it talked about the whole way it was started by this, Satoshi Nakamoto and what it was all about, which got me really excited. Sort of this rise up with Silk Road. That was the whole article, was how Silk Road came out. It drove the price up really high, then it died, or people thought it died, and obviously it's not. So I really got, I just wanted to read more and more about it, and so I got really involved in the Litecoin community and the Bitcoin community kind of right off the bat. So that was all in 2011.
What does really involved mean? What were you doing?
Just trying to help grow it, I guess.
So were you like part of a Reddit group member, a subreddit member, or were you speaking with the people who were actually developing it? Like, what was your level?
Yeah, in the early days, it was all. It wasn't like how it is now, where people are pushing marketing, and it was just people that really, like me, had a really desire to use this new kind of currency, and the future lofty goals of what it could become, which we're kind of starting to see right now.
Yeah.
The value of the coin wasn't very much, but we talked about how high it could be, obviously, and how it could change things. So. Like in the Litecoin community, Charlie Lee, who everybody probably knows, was active in the community, and we would all chat, just have ideas of how to get Litecoin awareness out, and Bitcoin was the same way. The developers were in there. And our main forum was the Bitcoin Talk forum, but there was also the subreddit that are there now. But there was BitcoinTalk.org is the main kind of Bitcoin forum back then, and there weren't very many exchanges. It was super hard to buy digital currency. Just moving your money from your bank account into digital currency, usually, like the first time I ever bought Bitcoin or Litecoin, I lost probably a third of my money just in fees trying to get it into into that. It was btc.e or -e.com, but just trying to get my money in there to buy it, it took a third of mine just with fees, because it's a lot easier now. So
yeah, well, everybody's trying to increase user adoption, so that makes sense. But how did you get involved specifically with Particl? And could you give us that timeline or when the shift happened?
Yeah, so I was I was I was into Bitcoin and Litecoin. Litecoin was kind of like my one I really gravitated to because I was in so early, and around 2013 or 14, I started getting into more of the privacy coins. So Monero and Darkcoin, Shadow Cash, a lot of those were all kind of starting in that same period. Darkcoin a little earlier. That's Dash now.
Oh, okay.
But Monero and Shadow Cash around the same time. And so I was, early involved in those, just on the community level. I was never on a team.
Okay.
I was never on the Shadow Cash team, but I was an investor in it, or not an investor. I was an investor because I own Shadow Cash, but it's not a company, so you're not really an investor. But I was gung-ho and passionate about the project, about privacy. So that got me looking at teams that were really good and development teams that were delivering and were kind of creating something that was needed and private. So Shadow Cash was really working on the Shadow Cache marketplace was this ideal sort of privacy marketplace that they were working on the side. And so, I started trying to help however I could. So I saw that they needed writing help, and I like to write. So I started trying to help with writing and getting involved with the team and seeing how I could help just on a volunteer basis.
Okay.
And that ended up leading to the end of 2016 or so. There was kind of like a real big desire for it to, for us to really take, if we were going to do the marketplace as a decentralized privacy marketplace with Shadow Cache, the team, I wasn't part of the team, but the team was sharing with the community that we kind of have to, that we can't continue with how, like the blockchain it's on now and sort of the name that it has now. So there was starting to be like this talk about a shift into a new project.
What do you mean? Sorry, just to interrupt you. I already sort of knew about this changeover from Shadow Cache, but I thought it was just about a branding decision, but you just mentioned the blockchain it's on now. Did you change something technical?
Yes, yeah. So it was a brand change. We had met with some advisors that were familiar with startups and entrepreneurs, and they were investors in cryptocurrencies. And they had said, the Shadow project name kind of has some dark sort of innuendos with like a dark market. So that's going to be harder to get in mainstream and just kind of get adoption. It's going to be a struggle every time you try to talk about it, because it's going to have a shady past. Even if it doesn't, it's tied to this thought of dark markets. So that was a rebrand. That was definitely a thing that we wanted to do, but the biggest thing was changing the code base. So Shadow Cache was built on Bitcoin, an early version of Bitcoin from 2012.
Okay.
So, and it was actually a fork of another black coin. So it was sort of a whole mismatch of, or not mismatch, but just like a big pot of changes the Shadow Cache team had done, other teams had done to Bitcoin's code base.
Okay.
So what we wanted to do was start with the freshest Bitcoin that was there, the most secure, and that would give us a platform that would allow us to invite other developers to work on it because they would be familiar with it. It's like when you are designing a project for, say, like your computer, and you're using a Windows computer, you're going to build it for the latest Windows 10, and you're going to want to build it on that versus Windows 95 or something like that.
Yeah.
So Shadow Cache was sort of, the code could be related to Windows 95. I mean, it was working. Windows 95 machine works. It's not as secure, and nobody's really building things for that. And so if we were going to make a privacy platform that we would get other people to work on, we really needed to have a fresh code base, a secure set, base. So Shadow Cache and Particle's chains are different. So we didn't just rebrand and keep going on with Shadow Cache's history. Shadow Cache has their own chain that's still there. It's still.
Is it being developed?
No, it's not being developed
but it's
anymore.
Still there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's still there, and it's still, people are still on it and use it, but it's not actively developed. And the Particl blockchain's a whole brand new blockchain that's built with the freshest Bitcoin code base. So that was probably the number one reason why the shift from Shadow to Particl was starting with a strong foundation. The rebrand was in there, and some other things were obviously in there. There's things that came along with Bitcoin's code base, the newest code base that allowed us to do things like SegWit was part of the new Bitcoin code base we were using that allowed us to have all the transactions on Particl are SegWit.
Okay.
So that means there are lower fees, lower costs, and it also allowed us to do the privacy tech we really wanted to do. Particl has a different privacy cryptography than Shadow Cache had too.
What was Shadow Cache using, out of curiosity?
So Shadow Cache had ring signatures, it was zero knowledge proofs, but the biggest thing that it had done was ring signatures. It used stealth addresses. But the biggest thing was just using ring signatures to protect the buyer and sender and receiver's privacy. Particl actually takes Greg Maxwell's work on confidential transactions. We actually have that on the Particl code base. We have ring signatures and stealth addresses. We have all that. The Shadow Cache team was actually the first team to put stealth addresses onto the Bitcoin code base.
Okay.
And back, on the older code base we had. So some of the things we grabbed from there and other things we added to with Particl. So we have ring CT actually on Particl. We didn't have that on Shadow Cache.
Are the same developers who were working with Shadow Cache, just like I guess you also came over from that project, are they also working with Particl?
Yeah, a lot of the developers from Shadow Cache, the biggest ones that were actually doing it all the time are CRZ, Ryan, who's not really a developer, but Rhino and Technovert are like the three main guys that were part of Shadow Cache that just did it in their spare time and are still now on Particl but doing it full time.
Okay.
We had everybody was a volunteer on that project. Like I said, I wasn't officially on the team, but I volunteered. But some of the volunteers that were real active in Shadow Cache actually aren't active on Particl, but they're not.
Okay.
Yeah, they're still involved, but they're not actually doing the same roles they were doing with Shadow Cache. So we had a community manager with Shadow Cache that's not the same with Particl. We had some marketing and PR stuff with Shadow Cache that's not the same with Particl. Okay. So some of the teams stayed. Just everybody had projects that they were working on and things like that just keeps people busy with that sort of stuff too. So there was like Ludex, who's on our team now. He was a community developer on the team. He wasn't necessarily, I guess he was part of the team, but he was still not like, it was sort of it was a side project like all of the developers. So Ludex is one of our main developers now here too. Martin Alien, who is one of the graphic guys, he was part of Shadow Cache.
Okay.
So there's a handful of guys that came over.
We sort of went away from what I was talking about. Could you talk more about your particular role in that transition from Shadow Cache to Particl?
Yeah, so when we decided to do the pivot, a group of people went out to Hong Kong and met out with some of the investors that were out there, plus folks that were kind of helping us walk through how you do a pivot and do a new startup. And I wasn't part of that team, but I was back here in the know kind of on that. So decisions that were made there were kind of relayed to a handful of us. And so my role with the whole pivot was basically to kind of help with the business plan of it, the PR plan of it, the market, how we were going to market it, how we were going to roll it out to the community, and a little bit with the design and everything like that. And so I was just kind of really what I do now, which is just communicate, being able to write up what we wanted to get out there, just producing content and just filling those needs.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think you sort of just touched on exactly what you do for Particl's community. So I won't ask you. You basically communicate and make content for people.
Yeah.
So you said that you were interested in privacy coins, particularly. That's why you left Litecoin and Bitcoin to come over to more privacy-focused coins.
Right.
Could you talk to me more about your interest in that, and why that interests you, and why specifically you think that Particl is the coin to go to solve those problems?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I got into privacy coins, and really what I liked about that was that you could. That they were trying to solve that. I like the idea of the public ledger, being able to keep everything accountable, the distributed nature of a blockchain, the ledger. But so these privacy projects like Particl, they were looking at ways to keep that. Everybody doesn't need to know how many coins you have or who you're sending it to or what address even you're sending it to. There's a benefit to a public ledger where peers can validate things, and you don't need a third party to say yes, that's a real that's a real transaction. But they only need a little bit of information to be able to do that. They don't need to know everything. They only need to be able to verify up to a point, and then it's verified, and everybody needs to be able to do that. So the privacy projects, the thing that I liked about it was they were working with the cryptography to be able to allow that to where only the minimal amount of information that doesn't release any private information, like who I am, not that I'm hiding anything. There's a big difference between being secret and being private, and this isn't anything to do with secrecy. It's all about privacy and just the right to have your stuff personal.
Could you explain to me what the difference between secrecy and privacy is in your mind? Because in my mind, they're very similar, but because you said the two words in this context, I'm thinking that secrecy is more withholding, whereas privacy is more privacy is more remaining in the state it was already in, like not giving out more than is necessary, or like having a wall but not necessarily taking back from what should be there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Could you like explain that? Because in my mind, they're very similar.
Right.
Sorry, it's a tough question.
So,
but,
no.
Yeah,
and I think they get confused a lot because people automatically say, well, I don't have anything to hide, so why can't everything just be like, why do I need to worry about privacy? And I kind of relate it to, there's a couple scenarios or analogies, I guess I could say. So like, say if you were, so in a public restroom, there's stalls, right? So you go into your stall or whatever, and everybody knows what you're doing in there, but there's still the option to close that door, and you have your, there's something private. You have your privacy where, it's not a secret. Everybody knows what you're doing in that stall, right? I mean, that's why you're there. Or say your house. So, everybody's got curtains on their houses, right?
Right.
So just because I close my curtains doesn't mean I'm doing anything bad behind it. It's just that I want this to be my space, my family space. There's no secrets that we're hiding or anything by doing that. So it may not be like the best analogies, but, there's...
I see a bit more of a distinction now when you put it that way.
Yeah, so it's not that we're doing anything. So like in the bathroom scenario, I mean, there's no secret why I have to go in there for a purpose, and but I have the option to be able to shut the. Well, I would hope everybody would shut the door, but you know what I mean. That so, but that option's there for the privacy aspect of it. It's a personal thing, and so we're not hiding anything. It's just personal. So I guess in my mind, that's the difference between them both. I think the argument for secrecy or privacy is a little weak once you understand that it's not that we're trying to get I don't gravitate towards privacy coins so that I can, all the bad stuff I want to do can finally be wrapped up and hidden behind, closed doors or anything. I just do it because you don't need to know that I'm even, so say like in our marketplace it's going to come out. You don't need to know that I bought anything, that movie for my daughters or whatever it is. Like, there's no reason you need to know that.
Right.
Your computer could know that went through, and it can verify that, but you don't need any information from there. I think that's been coming out a lot more with, Bitcoin as these tracking, I don't know what they're called, but they're analytics. They kind of analyze the blockchain.
Chain analysis?
Sort of like that, yeah, chain
analysis,
analysis, right, yeah. So, like when Satoshi designed Bitcoin, it was sort of, he said it was anonymous, but sort of pseudo-anonymous because, sure, I don't know what your Bitcoin address is, but if you ever give that, say, I can watch that address, and if and I can track who it interacts with and keep a running tab of all the addresses it interacts with, and I can even do that with the coins that you have in there. So if I know your address has one, or I know this address has 1 Bitcoin, I can track that through the whole history of it. And once somebody on that chain actually identifies this as my address, now I've got a name to it. So it's sort of pseudo-anonymous. You can get the same peer-to-peer, trustless transactions done with without knowing all that kind of information. And I think that's what I like about the privacy side of it, is that to know that my actions can't be traced through the whole history of my, what I do. Not that I'm hiding anything. It's just that nobody needs. If it's just me transacting with anybody, nobody in the whole world needs to know my whole entire history of stuff except me.
Right.
Nobody needs to know that I transacted all these times on these dates. There's no reason for it unless someone needs to know that information for whatever reason. And
right.
So you can do that now on Bitcoin. You can do that on all the non-private projects. So for me, that's sort of what drew me to. It's a tough subject, but that's sort of what drew me to Particl. And then another thing I liked about it was the fact that I'm big on online shopping, and or just having a presence online, and you're realizing as we go along with this that there's a lot of projects, or a lot of companies that actually source all that data and they'll feed it back to you. So if I shop on Amazon and I go to another site, I know the ads are going to pop up just from my history shopping on there, which is, so that's again knowing someone knows my whole history and they've collected it, and now they're using it to promote other things to try to lure me in. They're almost kind of reprogramming me.
I mean, I feel like you're like the prey, and using technology like Bitcoin, even though it helps you in a big way because you can now send money instantly without the use of traditional financial institutions all the way across the world, but at the same time it opens you up to a whole host of other people who you may not actually want to be interacting with. And from what I hear you saying, and from my own thinking about this, I think that privacy is the default. It should be the default, like that should be the default state. And then if you want to, then you can give someone access to that information, maybe someone who's regulatory, or someone who you want to do business with and you don't necessarily want to do business with some online ad company that's tracking you without you knowing it. And one more thing I want to add, based on what you're saying, is that it sounds to me like you were interested in privacy coins because you realized that other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Litecoin weren't delivering what was the expectation. Yeah,
you felt like it was like that until actually companies started popping up that were actually like, well, we know who you are. That's where it got a little bit like, oh, okay, there's some more stuff that needs to be done here. So yeah.
Okay, so now I want to switch topic a little bit to not just focusing on you, but talking about Particl in particular. Could you, I saw that you had published a year in review, sort of, on the Particl news blog, and I was wondering if you could just tell us again what the highlights were, pretty short and succinctly, what the highlights were from the past year.
Yeah, so we had a full year. We launched in July, and so we had kind of a half a year to sort of start releasing stuff. We put confidential transactions on Bitcoin's code base. We put Ring CT on Bitcoin's code base. Those were two big technical breakthroughs no other project had done. We actually updated our code base along with Bitcoin's 3 times last year.
Okay.
We're the only project on the latest Bitcoin code base, but we were the only one on 15.1. And I believe one of the only ones on those 15 versions too. So. Okay.
So are you saying that other projects don't update as quickly, so they're still using a previous version?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I was explaining Shadow Cache, we were on 0.8
Okay.
Bitcoin, which was from 2012. And most proof of stake coins are actually on 0.8 or some version of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of projects like Zcash and Dash, I think Pivx, some of those, they're on 12. They're on 12, right?
Yeah.
It's just the first code base where they started on, and then they added all the features they wanted to add onto. And for the most part, once a lot of projects break that, then they don't keep up to date with all the stuff Bitcoin developers are doing. So
is it too difficult?
It's sort of a big. I mean, it's sort of difficult to do. I mean, we have our best developer is Technovert, and he's the person that does it for us. And even he says, I mean, it's a challenge sometimes. So
I see.
So even when we started, it was 14.2, which is the same one Litecoin's on, and Litecoin does update theirs sort of every once in a while. Not every time, but every once in a while. So they 14's what they're on now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what other updates?
We did that. We actually wrote a grant for the New Jersey Institute of Technology to code review our Ring CT. We released 4 products, which were wallets. So we have the Particl Copay wallet, which is an Android wallet and a desktop wallet that lets you mobily transact part, and it has multi-sig. So we did the Particl Copay. We have the Particl Desktop wallet, which is our flagship project or wallet, and that's a whole GUI. And then we have the Particl Core and the Qt wallet. So we have 4 wallets that are out that we did. Let's see, we also did a bunch of community things where we set up ways for the community to interact with the team and to set up proposals for the community to be able to.
What's that?
So
that's AMAs. That kind
no,
of stuff?
those are like these are like pips and pops and different things like that. So people can actually, if they have
what pips and pops are.
Yeah, so they're particle improvement proposals, or those are where anybody, even if they're not part holders, can suggest an improvement to the protocol, which could actually be voted on by stakers, and change the whole landscape of Particl. So we really want to have the community and the governance of it set out with the stakers, have them in control, so anybody can make an improvement proposal. Say we want to increase the supply of Particl from 8 million to 16 million. They'll write an improvement proposal why they do that, and then it can be voted on.
Okay.
So it's similar to Decred does that, Bitcoin does that. So we set those up, and then there's opportunity proposals, which are POPs, Particl Opportunity Proposals.
I like this. They sound nice. Pips and pops.
And those are where we really are getting requests from the community or anything to be able to, say, like a staking pool. We wanted to do a staking pool. Well, we'll put those opportunities out there for the community to be able to do, and then we have rewards for that. So we can offer, Particl rewards or swag or different things like that to be able to. So we set some of that stuff up. There's a whole lot, to be honest. I haven't reviewed that blog in a while. Yeah. But it did seem like we had a whole bunch of stuff that came out with that. So I think the biggest ones were the privacy and the security focus that we did. So. Okay.
Well, you mentioned the marketplace, and speaking of the marketplace, Paul has been under a lot of fire lately.
Yeah.
Due to the first quarter of the year having passed, and everyone was expecting there to be a marketplace release. There have been continuous updates, so the developers and the core Particl team have been in touch with the rest of the community. But do you have any great
newest
news
updates?
For us? Yeah.
Well, before we started this, I was getting little texts from people saying that the GitHub's super active. So it's really neat because the community is actually watching all the code stuff. I know in-house they're working on doing the builds. I've actually been trying to get a video done. So Code, one of our designers, I sort of set this up in our Telegram, I think, but took 2 virtual machines and went through a whole listing a product, going through buying escrow and everything through the whole thing, and he was going to try to work on a video for me to be able to share. Still waiting on that, and we're trying to get some builds done. We have a meetup later today, and I was trying to get some builds for that to show off. The last meetup I was able to show off sort of some teaser on the marketplace, so I was hoping for that. But I have nothing new as far as a date or a set, kind of deadline for that. We're just trying to give up kind of updates. There's a lot of testing and bug sort of testing now. Go ahead.
I think the last time I saw those percentage updates, there was only one left, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, so those are, we have a team member, Vivian, who kind of went through and set up, these are all the different actions that we're still missing. We had a whole bunch of work done, but we were still missing these sort of things. So we sent those out, and we kind of put percentages to each one. There were 6 sections, buyers and sellers. And they thought there was about an hour for each one of those. So it wasn't an hour for each section, it was an hour for each one. So those are the 100% sort of updates we've been giving. There's one that's at 95%, I think, as of yesterday. The other ones are 100%. And the 100% just represents the developments done on them.
Oh, okay.
So the testing still is going through. Some of them still say testing.
Okay.
But the testing's still going through a little bit on them, and hunting bugs and stuff. So sometimes when you're fixing, it's just how development goes. When you're fixing something, it can break something else.
Right.
And for us, we're using Angular and Electron, and those are active sort of frameworks for our apps.
Okay.
Those are like the framework for our apps.
I think I understand.
Those teams are doing updates at the same time we are. So as we're building it for a certain update of an app, that whole app could get updated, and it breaks some other stuff that we're doing. So it's a constant battle of trying to get it right. And our project, we won't put out an official build unless will work. So even though this is a testnet build, so I think we're really close. I feel like we're really close. I feel bad because every AMA I've been saying it's going to be, we heard this is when it's good. It looks like we can have it this time, and those pass. So I try to give you guys all the information that I've got as I get it. But again, it's tricky with roadmaps. It's those are things we use to kind of plan out how we're going to staff it, what it's going to cost, all the different things we need to get ready. And sometimes those slip, and we don't look at them as delays. I think a lot of other people do. We obviously feel bad not having it out. Our goal is to get it out when we say we're going to get it out, but there are issues that happen, and I really, really want to date so that we can start promoting it, and so we're still waiting on that. So nothing fancy to unleash here, but
we're just on the edge of our seats waiting, but that's okay. And then once that's released, it's still going to be testnet, so there will still be some time.
Yeah.
And you're going to be promoting this testnet version, and then at some point we'll have a fully functional marketplace, which will still be updated, but it will be ready to use.
Yeah, the next big release. So this is alpha. The next big release will be beta. There might be many releases in between there, but the beta is going to have the governance, which is the self-governance, which is the main reason it's not on mainnet right now. So we're not going to. So right now, anybody can list anything, and there's no governance to be able to take it off. The foundation and development team we can't singly pick out anything off of it and take it off. Some other projects are like that. They have the ability to actually go in and take things off. We're building this as a trustless marketplace, just like Satoshi built his currency as a trustless currency. Like the Bitcoin code guys, the developers can't go in and actually get rid of one transaction.
No moderators in that way. Like there'll still be moderation, but there aren't like specific people who are appointed as moderators.
Yeah. So like on a lot of other marketplaces, you can apply to be a market moderator. You can charge a fee, and all that kind of stuff. And in my personal opinion, I don't like that system. I like it if it was a centralized company that offered moderation. because they're held accountable by the public.
Yeah.
But when it's just, say if you're moderating one of my deals, one, why are you even in on the deal? Because it's between me and somebody else.
Right.
But two, you may not ever show up online again. I might pick you to be a moderator.
Okay.
And you could just say, I don't want to open that I was just checking it out, I signed up for
Right.
it, and now I'm stuck with you as a moderator, and you're not ever on there, so I'm stuck, you know. So we're trying to do it trustless. So we have a contract that's a smart contract between two people, and that's how it operates. So the two people have to come to an agreement for it to, for escrow to be released. That's called MAD escrow. And so we have trustless escrow, and then the way that the mainnet marketplace is going to have governance. So that's not censorship, it's not regulation, it's governance, where everybody that's a part holder is a governor on it, and it's up to the users to be able to, you know, highlight things that aren't supposed to be on the marketplace, and they can vote for it or whatever system we end up coming out with, and they can kick it off.
Okay.
So we won't be able to do that, and so that's a huge sort of legal hurdle we got to set up and build before the foundation would have anything on mainnet where it could be liable, or the developers could be liable, or any of the team members could be liable for somebody getting hurt from the marketplace or selling illegal stuff, and then we're held responsible. So like I said, with other projects, if something like that were to come out, they could actually take it off or kick out the person that was posting the bad stuff. The way we're building it, we won't have anything, so we need that governance in there. So that'll be the big thing with beta, plus privacy. You know,
Ring CT?
Ring CT still needs to be on there too. So, so we're still trying to figure out if we can release. The debate's going to be next is, can we put out a beta marketplace on the mainnet that you can really use your part to buy and sell with, or you can use other coins to buy and sell with, and can that happen without the full private Ring CT actually on there? So that'll be a kind of a debate when that comes up. But yeah, we'll constantly, our main product's going to be the marketplace. It's built in the desktop, which is our flagship sort of app. So it's a piece of that app, but that's going to be our focus. We'll have a team of developers constantly updating that and fixing it and all that stuff. So we need testers. So the community is super excited about even the testnet version, even though it's not real. And we'll have real stuff on it too. So we're going to have shirts, so people will be able to go through the process of buying it, and they'll use test coins that aren't real money, but they'll sign up and get them, and we'll ship it to them. And we'll have to pay in real, with real money. So so we'll have some promotional stuff for it.
Okay. Are there any other news in the future that we should be looking forward to that are coming up on the roadmap this year?
Well, we have, I know like Technovert, who I've talked about, he's got a couple things on his plate that he's working on, the ledger integration. So the hardware wallets are a really big thing for privacy, and you really want to have control of your private keys, and Ledger's one of the best ones out there. So we've talked, in communication with the team, hearing from them that, they want us to be able to, they want us to integrate it, they'll peer review it and be able to use it. So we've got...
I thought that the Ledger Nano S, that could be used, but only if you're a very technical user. Like if you knew how to work the command line.
Yeah, well, the code's in there, so yeah, you could do that. This is something we haven't actually done, had the full release of it yet, but I know Technovert's got he's got it on testnet, and then he also has, I think what last I heard was the Particl can be used, just the normal public transactions that are like Bitcoin transactions. Our confidential transactions and the Ring CT transactions, those aren't working yet. So that's one big thing that's going to be coming down the pipeline. We have the New Jersey Institute of Technology peer review. That's up next month, I believe. Where we're supposed to be getting a report back from that.
Next month is May?
May, yeah. So hopefully we'll get a report from there, and that'll start to go the next sequence where we'll implement what they recommend. then we'll have that peer reviewed, code reviewed, which will be a smaller period, like a month or so.
Okay.
And then from that, we'll be able to set up a time where we can update it again in the code. And then, so that'll be 2 peer reviews for Ring CT.
Okay.
I don't believe there's any, as far as I know, I don't think Monero's had their Ring CT peer reviewed. So this will be good for both projects or anybody that uses Ring CT, even though ours is on Bitcoin code base. They're on a different code base.
Okay.
And then from there, Particl will actually have a hard fork from that as well. So to be able to put Ring CT onto mainnet, the whole project's going to have a mandatory hard fork where we'll put this new code on, and it'll change the history of Particl from that point forward. So
Okay.
we did another hard fork earlier when we did cold staking, when we added cold staking to the project. That was another big thing we did in year review.
Okay.
I forgot.
You
Cold
want to talk
staking.
about that a bit, about why it's important?
Sure,
cold
yeah.
staking? And
Well-
is there something unique to Particl about cold staking also? Because it sounds like there's a lot that's
Yeah.
unique to Particl.
Yeah. I mean, our team, we have developers, so we see a need and we build it. So Particl's proof of stake, and one of the downfall, there's fans of proof of work, which is how Bitcoin is. It's mineable. There's fans of proof of stake. There's projects that are proof of work that are thinking of going proof of stake, like Ethereum's proof of work that's thinking about switching to proof of stake for reasons. Proof of stake has some vulnerabilities. One that came out actually with the, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the meltdown and Spectra.
No, I've just heard of it.
Okay.
I plan to make a video on it, but I haven't done my research
So it was a
yet.
big virus thing, but proof of stake projects especially, in order for you to reap the reward of a stake, you actually have to broadcast your public key hash constantly. So the wallet that has all your coins in it, you're constantly sharing the public key hash. It's cryptographically secure because of a hash, but it's constantly being broadcast. So if someone were to break that, they could actually break that and get into your, be able to figure out your private key hash with some more work.
That's
and
really
actually have
difficult,
access
though.
to your, yes,
That's super, but it's possible.
it could be possible even sooner with quantum computers.
Oh, okay.
That's like a whole nother topic.
Yeah,
but
okay.
all of this relates to cold staking, because what Particl does, there's projects that do cold staking, but we do it different. Other projects that have cold staking, you have 2 wallets, and they're both online. One has 0 coins in it, the other has all your coins in it. And this online wallet, that both are online on most other all other projects. This one with 0 actually broadcasts that constant number.
Right.
If someone were to steal it, they'd only have access to this one, but it has a link to everything it earns goes into this other wallet. So that's
Okay.
sort of how cold. So it's basically 2 wallets and an agreement between them. So the way Particl's cold staking works is we took the wallet with all the coins offline. So we figured out how to have an online wallet that has 0 coins in it, and it stakes to a wallet that's offline. It could be a piece of paper that has all your coins on it. Just, with your
That
address.
doesn't sound different from what you just described, though. That sounds like the same thing.
And the cold staking on the other projects, they're both online. So
okay.
being online is always a vulnerability.
Okay.
It's a slim chance, but anytime you're online, your computer's susceptible to malware or viruses, and that could lead to your coins being stolen. If you have a cold wallet, which is an offline wallet, which is like a hardware wallet, like Ledger, like we were explaining,
Okay.
that's the benefit of that. Those wallets are offline, only you have access to them, they're not plugged in anywhere. That's the safest way to store your coins.
Okay.
So cold staking with Particl is we actually integrate, what we wanted to do was put all your coins offline, but be able to secure the network while you're online. So our setup is an online wallet and offline wallet, which is different, and then a contract between them.
Okay.
So that was it's unique in the space as well. So it's probably something that'll be adopted from other proof of stake coins because it's a really secure. It protects against quantum computers stealing your coins from staking, and it protects against viruses like we didn't even know about, Meltdown or Spectra. And people that were cold staking had no worries with anything from that. So
okay. And was there anything else that you wanted to add, just in general, to the community?
No. Well, I think we're real excited with what the community is doing, and we've been laying out plans to do some translations, trying to get the community more involved. The community's been real vocal, rightfully so, because it's all of our project, on being more transparent, being more open, having more information, maybe even getting more out of the developers, and so we're working on all of that right now. My communication team with CryptoGuard and Christina and James and others are working on a plan basically to open up all our communication so it's public. So everybody will know what's going on. Everybody will be able to see what needs done and needs help. And translations are part of that. So we're always constantly doing some stuff. We've got some more things on the roadmap that are exciting, like bulletproofs, which is a new kind of thing that everybody's talking about, which will help reduce the size of our transactions of all our private stuff. And there's some other stuff that's in there. So we've got our roadmap online shows a bunch of stuff that we're planning on doing, and I think it's a real, exciting roadmap. So it should be good. But yeah, that's it. Okay, well, that's it for today. I have now met Paul, and so have you guys through me, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks for having me. Bye.